Well, happy Independence Day, Israel. It's the 75th anniversary of the independence of Israel. And today we're going to talk with a friend of Charisma, Jonathan Feldstein. And Jonathan, it's great to have you here to be able to talk about what it's like in Israel right now, because you live in Israel and work there, and that's where your ministry is as well. And so it'll be great to hear from your perspective what this 75th anniversary of Israel's independence means to you.
Well, it's great to be with you, John. Always to see you. And today has been such a special day. I have to say, I've been so busy the last couple of months. I've not really focused on the imminence of this tremendous celebration, but it's been just a glorious day. I'm a dual American Israeli citizen. I love the US, I love Israel. And today we saw the best of Israel. And yesterday on our Memorial Day, we saw the grief of the country, and we do the two together. The grief of the loss of over 28,000 people, and today just celebrating the miracle, celebrating the blessing. Just an hour and a half ago, I had my whole family over for a barbecue, and there's nothing better than being in Israel, being a Jew who God gave the keys to the land to our ancestors, and now to be having 3 generations living here in the land. It's just extraordinary, and it's been a special day, and we are joyous, but we don't take any of it for granted.
Yeah. So I know you just mentioned that you had your family over there for a barbecue about an hour and a half ago. So thank you, first and foremost, for making the time to be able to talk to me on such a busy day. But I know, July 4th is the United States Independence Day. And we normally celebrate with hot dogs, hamburgers, cheeseburgers, cookout on the grill, fireworks, and things like that. What foods do you guys eat for your barbecue, and how do people celebrate?
So no cheeseburgers. That's not
Yes,
kosher.
I threw that in there just to get that comment. Yeah.
So what's lovely is that Israelis have this habit. We do it at our house. We're still very American, but Israelis have a habit of catching any patch of grass or greenery that's under trees and bringing a portable grill and grilling anything. I'm a grilled meats. So today, before we had our barbecue, we went on a hike about an hour from my house. It's stunning. My wife is learning to be a tour guide right now. She took us on a hike that's to the west of the Elah Valley, where Goliath, as in David and Goliath, had his fort, had his camp. 2,800, no, more than 2,800, 3,000 years ago. And it was an intense hike. You have to go in Israel. You're familiar with this, I think. A tell is when there's a civilization that's been piled up with dirt over the centuries. So we climbed up onto the top of this thing, which is a commanding view of a whole huge valley. And I actually picked up, it was tremendous, littered on the ground there, shards of pottery that must be 2,000 or 2,500 years old. So that began our day, and it was lovely. And then we came back here, and typically you'll see people, smoke coming up with burgers and hot dogs and all kinds of grilled chicken and steaks. And we love to throw vegetables on the grill. But in Hebrew, the word is mangal. It's a noun and it's a verb, and it's just part of the pastime, and it's just a delight. I smell like smoke right now because of hours, but it's just been amazing.
Yeah. So that's really cool that you got to go to that place where, Goliath had his fortress there. I mean, the thing that brought to mind is the number of times in Israel's history that they've been invaded or taken over, and God rose up a judge or rose up a king to expel those people, those foreigners, and then on 2 different occasions during the Babylonian exile, the children of Israel were taken away, but then they came back. And then in 1946, they were able to come back as well. And whenever you think of this independence and Israel becoming a nation again, and it has been for the last 75 years, what kind of pride does that make you? Does that bring up in you? Because I mean, these are your ancestors that you're basically kind of following in their story?
So I don't know if pride is the right word. I have pride sitting as the father and grandfather at the head of a 3 meter long table that's packed with my family. That's unavoidable. I have joy. I have
Mm.
gratitude. I can drive. An hour is a long drive from my house to go to see things that are biblical. I have the privilege of living what God promised and prophesied, that we were going to come back, that when you look at my 3 grandchildren running around, whether it's in my house or on the street, it's prophecy. My kids joke that I'm an old man. I don't know
Mhm.
if I'm old yet, but that's another prophecy about old men walking in the streets. And we're back, and I see and I hear Jewish life revived here, speaking the ancient language that was never dead but is now commonplace. And we today was my daughter's 30th birthday as well, so we played a game, headbands,
Mhm.
in Hebrew. But my kids are playing headbands in Hebrew just as like that's totally normal, and as if we'd never been exiled. And
Wow.
that's, so again, it's not even, it's pride, it's just joy, it's elation, it's just the privilege of getting the best Christmas gift you ever could
Mhm.
and not ever wanting to return it.
That's really good. That's really good. Israel's Independence Day is today, but it's something that you constantly are, and you constantly have to fight for still. I mean,
Yes.
it's not just a given at this point. It's a continual struggle because of the geopolitical things that are going on in that region. I mean, of course, we have the Palestinians and the Jews, and the issues with that. But then you have Iran, and they vowed to wipe Israel off the face of the map, and there's a lot of attacks that are going on, and also suicide bombers and things like that are happening. Plus, you just recently have some judicial reform things, and I've heard people say that Israel's on the verge of a civil war. So there's a lot of things that are going on in the news and the headlines, but what does it feel like for you? And what are the things that concern you?
Well, therefore, there's never a respite. Yeah, I've been to Australia a couple of times. Australia's big news is when they have a whale that's beached. We're always on the edge, and all those things that you mentioned and more. Whether it's, of course, the Iranian threat, and I take that very seriously, as do our leaders. The Iranians have enriched uranium now up to what they say is 84%, and you need 90% in order to get enough material for a nuclear weapon. I worry about it, but I don't worry about it. A, because of God, and B, because I know that our leaders are on top of it, and I don't know what will come of it. But we had, during the first day of Passover a few weeks ago, we had dozens of rockets fired at Israeli communities from Islamic and Arab terrorists, both in Gaza and in Lebanon. Hezbollah in Lebanon is known to have as many as 150,000, many long range and many very accurate rockets that can hit most of Israel, my house included. And that's, of course, it's nerve wracking, but by the same token, Israel was just voted, not voted, but ranked as the 4th most happy nation in the world. So there's this
Wow.
tremendous paradox, and I don't know who ranks it, but honestly, I think it's true.
Mhm.
Yes, we have conflict over judicial reforms. We've had weekly protests going on since January. We're no less divided, perhaps, today than American politics, and it's a lot about personalities
Mhm.
more than it is about substance. Although there's a lot of substance, and there's all this tension. But I'll tell you what, the last couple of days have, for me, shown a great respite. We've celebrated today. The day before was our Memorial Day. I mentioned the first day of Passover. Some of your viewers and followers will know that on the second day of Passover, excuse me, of 3 members of a family of 7 were not just murdered, executed
Mhm.
in cold blood in a terror attack, a shooting. They were our neighbors, so it
Wow.
it really hit our community real close to home, and it was the kind of crime. The other day there was a terror attack in Jerusalem. At the end of Passover, I was hosting a dear friend who's a Christian from Iran here, and we were driving in my neighborhood, and I said, "Gee, something's not right." And said it looked like there was some security incident. So I was stopped. I wasn't moving, and I texted my family, said, "Did something happen?" And turns out there had been a stabbing, and an Arab woman went and stabbed an Israeli man waiting at a bus stop. So these are things that we live with on a day-to-day basis, and people overseas have good reason to be concerned for us and for their own safety. But life goes on here, and life goes on with gusto. It's just we love it. We don't love the threats. We love our life, and we have purpose here. And I think that's what's driving both. It's purpose in our life, and it's purpose because we know that we're intimately and inseparably connected to God and God's promises with vis-a-vis the Jewish people
Mhm.
and the land and state of Israel.
Yeah. You know, the whole thing of life is something that is very important. And it, as you were talking about that, it just made me think of the song in Fiddler on the Roof, L'chaim, L'chaim to life.
Mm.
And it seems that that's something that you guys have been able to really embrace. And that call to life is very important. And there's a call that's going on right now. There's a Mike Bickle from the International House of Prayer is calling for people to fast and pray for Israel from May 7th to May 28th. And it's the Isaiah 62 fast, Isaiah62fast.com if you want information about that. But, for those 21 days, they believe that, God has all throughout the Bible called for times of fasting and prayer. What is it to you? What does that mean to be the recipient of those prayers? And
Wow.
that your nation being the recipient of that prayers. And the last time that we talked with Mike, he said that there's over 5 million people that have responded to this call, and that they've signed up to pray every day for Israel. When you hear some things like that, what does that make you think of, and what's just your response to that?
So I think first of all, think it's extraordinary. First I heard about it was earlier this week. A friend from Nashville was here, and we went out to dinner together, and he was telling me about it. I know of Mike Bickle. I've not met him. I know of the International House of Prayer. I was not aware of any of the plans for the 21 days of prayer and fasting, and I'm in awe. I'm humbled. I'm grateful. You know me. I work with the Genesis 1, 2, 3 Foundation, building bridges between Jews and Christians, and I get into some awfully interesting and edgy territory for an Orthodox Jew. But this is something that I've never seen. That it is completely innovative. I don't know that Mike knows the significance of the season, because, as you mentioned, today is Israel's 75th anniversary. According to the biblical calendar, according to the Jewish calendar, but May 14th was the day on the Gregorian calendar 75 years ago that Israel declared independence. So smack in the middle of this 21 days, we're also celebrating the other anniversary. And also in that time is the season when we have Pentecost, Shavuot in Hebrew, and we have the celebration of the restoration and reunification of Jerusalem. So these are very significant, and I tell Christians that I covet your prayers. I'm grateful for it. Prayer is a way that people can connect with one another, and certainly with Israel. That doesn't involve swiping a credit card. It can be done anywhere. It can be done at home. It is the most awesome thing, because we recognize. I always hate the phrase that we're serving the same God, because he's the only God, and Jews and Christians are the only ones who actually worship and revere him.
Mhm.
So I am just in awe. I'm grateful, and I look forward one day to being able to connect with Mike and thanking him in person.
Yeah, if we can make that happen, I think that would be a very cool thing. Jonathan, you talked about those important dates that happen during this time. Um, Pentecost is something that, as believers in Jesus, we look at it and say in Acts chapter 2 that feast was going on as the Holy Spirit was poured out in the upper room. Um, for you, what does Pentecost, Shavuot, mean to you? How is that celebrated? because that's
Well,
something that a lot of people just don't understand.
cool. And actually, because before we went live, I told you I'm going to be in Orlando on Shavuot, and maybe we'll get to do a little bit of that celebration
Oh,
and learning together. Shavuot is the time that on the calendar, the biblical calendar, that the Jewish people received the Torah. The Moses came down from Sinai with the commandments, but it's the whole Torah, all of the Bible. And so it's fascinating. There are many customs. First of all, because we're anticipating that, we know now. We didn't know. I don't know how many years ago that was. 3,500 years ago. We didn't know that was going to happen. So there wasn't an opportunity to prepare, but we're preparing. We're literally counting down the days, and we're anticipating that. So one of the traditions on Shavuot is we stay up all night studying Torah, studying Bible. And I'm sad that I'm going to be missing what's going on here in my neighborhood because it's so exciting, but I'm looking forward to doing a little bit of that there in your neighborhood. We have a tradition which is really fascinating. We could go to a lot deeper conversation, that we eat dairy food. The reason for that is that before receiving the Torah, before receiving all of the law, we didn't know what was kosher and what wasn't kosher, how a kosher animal could be slaughtered or not slaughtered.
mhm.
So there's a tradition that we eat dairy, sort of reminding ourselves that we were pre-law up until that point, and we weren't complicating things with what animals were kosher and what animals weren't kosher. So I am looking forward to digging into a really great piece of cheesecake. That is a big tradition, and as always, Jewish biblical festivals are around prayer, worship. We read the Book of Ruth. That's so pivotal for Jews and Christians, albeit
Yeah.
that Ruth wasn't a Christian. She was a Gentile who grafted herself into the Jewish people. So that's so significant to our relationship today. And that's actually the main thing that I'm looking forward to talking about and learning and unpacking, how Jews and Christians see that. But it goes on and on. It's just a delightful holiday.
So is Ruth the book that you guys will be studying during that time? Is that every year that happens, or is it just this particular year?
Excellent question. Every year on Shavuot, we read the Book of Ruth. Every biblical festival has its own additional scripture over and above the Torah reading, the reading from the 5 books, and I can go into that at another time if you want to just unpack what those readings are. But Ruth is always designated for Shavuot, and it's tremendously powerful. More so today. I mean, how many Christians do we all know, and who are listening right now, who affirm everything that Ruth said? Your God is my God. Where you go, I will go. I forget it all, but and there I will, and I will be buried. Your people are my people.
Right.
That's real. That's real today, and it's quite extraordinary.
Yeah. So that makes me wonder, the other feast that I'm most familiar with is Passover, and then Tabernacles.
Right.
And so what are the stories, or what are the books that you guys read alongside of those?
So those are more complicated a little bit, only because of the fact that Shavuot here in Israel is a 1-day holiday.
Okay.
In the diaspora, it's a 2-day holiday, but Passover and Sukkot or Tabernacles are 7 days. So there are multiple different readings that are done over the course of the 7 days, and each of those holidays have their additional own traditions as well.
Wow. There's so much to learn from that, and it's just fascinating to know how, I like how you said it. We don't serve the same God; we serve the one God, and He is the true God. And so, the things that has been put in place from the beginning, when Moses came down the mountain, Mount Sinai, with those tablets and the law, these are the things that God put in place, and we should be honoring and following those for forever, which is really important. It's not just
forever, but and transmitting that from generation to generation. That's so much part of Jewish life, and being raising my children in Israel and seeing now my grandchildren as the next generation. We're always passing on the tradition to the next generation.
That's wonderful. one of the things that is difficult to pass on is politics. And I know the last time that we talked, and I forget which way that we connect. I'm not sure if it was video or on podcast, but you were mentioning it was just before the last president or last prime minister
Right,
election,
right,
and which Benjamin Netanyahu did become the prime minister again, right?
correct, correct.
So you were telling me about how in the United States we have basically you're a Republican or a Democrat or independent, but uh, it's very divided at that point. But in Israel, there's so many more parties, and
Yeah.
it can be fractured even more. How are things in your family with that now, and how are things just in general?
Excellent question. Everyone, well, I'm really glad that my son is marrying the lovely woman that he is in July. A, because I love her and love seeing their relationship, and she's a beautiful addition to our family. But B, she bucks the trend in my family. They all voted, except for me. They all voted for one particular party, and some of them are having buyer's remorse. They're seeing where the parties are going, where the government formed, and not so happy with the outcome. We discuss it. We discuss it respectfully. We have not had situations in our family where no one will talk to one another. But I'll tell you honestly, before that last election, and maybe even, I don't know if it's more exacerbated now. We've been that was our fifth
Hmm.
election in 3.5 years. I think everybody, regardless of who we voted for, just wanted there to be stability. So,
Right.
so another thing that's coming up at the end of May, which is really significant, and maybe we need to tell Mike Bickle to throw in for prayers, is that Israel, by law, has to pass a government budget
Hmm.
by the end of May, and if it doesn't, we go to automatic elections.
Oh
So
goodness.
we may even see some tension building up within the government coalition, with people kind of squeezing some power and influence, holding the budget hostage, if you will. So yeah, there's a lot. It's not been an easy time. It's not been a quiet time. Um, we have a stable government at the moment, but if you and I had spoken uh, a year and 2 months ago, I would have said the same thing, and then
Hmm.
we went for another election.
Right. Well, these are all things that we need to keep in prayer for Israel, and we do celebrate with you Israel's Independence Day and the 75 years that it's been in existence again as a sovereign
Yes,
nation. Jonathan, we need to make sure that we stay connected a little bit more regularly. It's been a few months, I think, since we talked, and it's always good to know what is going on in the Promised Land. That's a very important thing to our readers and listeners and viewers. Basically, our charisma audience really cares for Israel, and we do everything that we can to help bring prayer support for that land in addition to whatever we can. So, Jonathan, it's great to be able to connect with you again, my friend, and I look
always.
forward to getting another update at another time soon.
Anytime, John. It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
All right. Shalom.
Shalom. God bless you.